Hello and welcome to Sharing the Light, and I'm Reverend Robert Griffin. Sharing the Light is an online ministry outreach of the Sunshine Cathedral located in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. In this segment today, Reverend Durrell Watkins, who is the senior pastor of the Sunshine Cathedral, will be answering some of my questions. Our opening question today is, does the Bible condemn homosexuality? So, Pastor, what is your response to, does the Bible condemn homosexuality?
Well, the Bible, of course, is a collection of books. It's a collection of stories and sermons and poems and dramas and parables. And so saying, does the Bible promote or condemn or condone or support is almost like saying, does the public library condemn or support or condone? It's a collection of things. And so you can probably find almost anything you're looking for in there. If you want to find something that condemns somebody, you can probably find it in there. Especially if you sort of splice together, this person said this and this person said that. A lot of people like to do these proof texting, where you quote one verse and then another verse. They have nothing to do with each other, the two verses. And if you string verses together like that, you can make any case in the world. And the famous example is two verses you could do. Judas hanged himself, go ye and do likewise. Well, so you've made a case, but really totally out of any sort of historic context or context of what anyone in the time was trying to do. So the Bible has been used to condemn same-gender loving people. But the concept of homosexuality is sort of a clinical concept, and it's fairly modern. I mean, it comes from the 19th century. The word comes from the 19th century. So I don't think anybody in the first century or before is condemning something that 19th century medical people coined a term for.
Right.
Now, certainly same-gender attraction and same-gender love is as old as the planet. As soon as there were 10 people on the planet, one of them was attracted to someone of the same gender. So, and as long as there's been someone who's been different from the majority, there have been people who've had problems with the differences. So, yeah, I'm sure there were people in Bible times who were not embracing what today we call homosexuality, and I'm also sure that there were others who were. So we can go through the standard examples. There's about 6 or 7, depending on how you read things. There's for sure 6 passages that people use in their condemnation of homosexuality.
And what's one of the classic ones?
Well, they can all be deconstructed. All of them can be challenged. One of them is rather silly. God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. Which is sort of silly because the creation story says there at the end of chapter 1 in Genesis that God looked at everything God made and called it all very good. It says that God made Adam and Eve simultaneously out of nothingness, and they were part of this creation that God called good. So God makes men and women, and so how they pair up isn't really part of the story. That's really not the point of the story. So I don't think that creation parable precludes people from pairing up in any sort of way. So that's a silly one. One that people use much more is the Sodom and Gomorrah story. Genesis 19. It's a dreadful story.
Famous one.
Yeah, famous. About these angels, and of course no one knows they're angels. They're a guest in town. Lot takes them into his house. They're in Sodom, and the men of the town descend on Lot's house and demand that he turn his guest over to them so that they can gang rape these strangers. Well, of course, that's a terrible story. Now, notice what the story is about. Nowhere does anyone ask anyone out on a date. No one is, it's not a story about attraction. It's not a story about love or even having a crush on someone. There's no wine or roses. It's just a story about mean people saying, throw out a stranger so that we can hurt them. Well, whether you're gay or straight, you're going to think that's reprehensible behavior, right? So, of course, Lot protects his guest by offering his daughters, which must be the worst parenting ever, and in the end, they escape. What people never seem to get to, though, is the end of the story. And the end of the story is, of course, Lot's wife is turned into a pillar of salt on the journey, but they escape, and they wind up, Lot and his 2 daughters, in a cave. And they get very, very drunk, I guess because they're so stressed out about all that's happened. And Lot is seduced by his daughters. And they conceive and have children. And the children that one daughter has is called the ancestor of one group of people, and the children that the other daughter has is called the ancestor of another group of people, the Moabites, and the Amorites and the Moabites. And so what the story really is a story condemning these people's enemies, the Amorites and the Moabites, saying that these communities that we don't like, these people that we're at war with all the time, and that we have conflict with all the time, they're no good. Their very existence comes from incest. That they're inbred from the beginning. So it's an ethnic slur against their enemies. It has nothing to do with same-gender attraction.
And so that story that you reference even raises a lot of other social issues and morals and ethics.
Exactly. It's a story about rape and violence and ethnic prejudice. It has nothing to do with two people being mutually attracted to each other and choosing to spend time together. It has nothing to do with that. So that one's easy enough to discount. There are exactly two verses in Leviticus that people use, one from chapter 18, one from chapter 22 or 20 or 22, and it's and they're taken totally out of context. And that's fine, except that nobody takes any other verses from Leviticus and does that. Right. Because Leviticus says don't eat shellfish. Well, you know, a person condemning gay people might have a shrimp vein stuck in their tooth, for heaven's sake. Or Leviticus condemns eating pork. And, you know, most people don't keep kosher. They eat pork, they eat shellfish. Tattoos are condemned in Leviticus. A woman who has a baby can't come into the worship space for over a month if she has a male child, more than 2 months if she has a girl child. Well, no one's observing. You know, people a week after they've had a baby are dragging their baby to church to show it off. So no one takes any prohibition from Leviticus literally except to justify a prejudice.
So why is that one lifted up so highly?
To justify their prejudice, because people are themselves so homophobic that whenever they find something that they think shares their homophobia, that for them carries the weight of the Word of God. Another comes, of course, from Romans 1. And again, people usually, there's two verses that they focus in on out of a much larger passage that is really a condemnation of idolatry. What Paul is assuming is that behavior that he doesn't understand is the result of improperly worshiping idolatry. And so, again, there's nowhere in the Bible that same-gender attraction or love or commitment is ever condemned. In fact, there's even a couple of places where it seems to be uplifted or tolerated or blessed, but we don't have time for that right now.
So what is one story that you feel that the gay community can hold and lift up as their story from the Bible?
Well, I think the story that leaps to my mind is the story of a Roman centurion who comes to Jesus to have his servant healed. Since the story is in Matthew, it's also in Luke. And the story is about someone who brings his, Matthew uses the Greek word pais to describe his servant. And that would have had a romantic understanding, that this servant is probably really his lover. And Jesus does not condemn the relationship. In fact, because it is a Roman person, we know that the Roman was not Jewish, and certainly not Christian. Christians don't exist yet at that time. So this Roman pagan comes because a man that he loves is sick, and Jesus heals the servant and praises the centurion's faith. And so a story where this person is not condemned for who he is, but is praised for the faith that he has, and his relationship is blessed. I think that's a wonderful story, and one that gay and lesbian people can cling to.
Well, thank you so much. Well, that's all we have time for today in this segment, and I want to thank you for joining us today. If you have questions about us or what we do here at the Sunshine Cathedral, please visit us at www.sunshinecathedral.org or write to me at robert@sunshinecathedral.org. And now for closing comments from Pastor Watkins.
I just want to invite everyone to worship with us at the Sunshine Cathedral. Any reason you can't get to us, of course, you can always join us on the web. We certainly wish you blessings on your journey.
Thank you for joining us today on Sharing the Light.